Okay, and now here's a short demo explaining how you would add audio effects into a track, really any track, but since we're talking about software instruments, that's what I'll use for this demo. So I've created a software instrument track. I've already assigned it to Alchemy, which is one of the synths that comes with Logic, very powerful synth. I'm going to click to open that up. Now, one thing to point out about Alchemy, notice that I still can click, because it's a Logic instrument, I can still click on this menu and I can still see all the presets this way. But Alchemy's a little bit different, that it also includes a more advanced browser where you can search for stuff by categories and subcategories and genres and things like that. So that's a little unique. But I can go in here and I can say, well, I want a lead type of sound. I want it to be analog sounding. I want it to maybe be for, I don't know, dubstep, and I want it to be dark. And then it's whittled it down to just 2 sounds that fit those particular categories. It's not too bad, so I'm going to use that one. Now I've already selected it. I could just start recording with that. If I want to go into some other views, I've got a simple view, or I can kind of morph this sound to different sounds. So check this out. So with Alchemy, almost every sound you choose will probably have 8 variations of that sound that you can morph live while you're playing, or you can just set it there and you can use that. If you want to get more advanced, you can actually jump into the synthesizer and see things like oscillators and various stuff of how they're working. That's something that we cover more in Electronic Music 2, as well as the sound synthesis class. But for this instrument, I'm also going to do something. So I've got my sound, got it selected. This instrument does have a built-in arpeggiator. We, of course, used a MIDI effect in a previous project to create our arpeggiator. It also has effects, which I could choose to turn off or add more. I'm going to actually turn off the delay, so you can hear the kind of echo delay. I'm going to turn that off. So now you don't hear the delay, because I'm going to actually add that as a channel strip effect. So I can close this window now that it's already assigned, and now I'm just going to go into my audio effects. Remember, a software instrument has MIDI effects, which are things like arpeggiators and chord triggers, but an audio effect can also be on an audio track or any type of track, because we're generating the sound from the Alchemy instrument or an audio recording you've done, and then it travels through the signal flow of going through the audio effects. So again, just like the instruments, I will see first recently used effects, audio effects, and then I'll see the ones that come with Logic. And you can see there's lots of categories they've put together already, which is nice, because you can just jump in for exactly what you want. But then at the bottom also you see audio units, and again, it's third-party companies that have effects. So this will be a different list than what was found in the instrument list. These are now also effects by those companies. You can see Audio Damage has a whole bunch of effects. So I've got my sound, and maybe I've shaped my sound through my synthesizer as much as I can, but I still need to do more that isn't possible within that. Well, as I said, I got rid of the delay because maybe I like a delay in here better. So I'm going to go down to the delay category. I've got like tape delay, and I can just start experimenting with this. Now, every plugin has a on-off button, so I can turn it off to here without that effect, and then hear it with the effect. So you hear that we hear at least three different delays of that. I can adjust the timing, make it faster. Anywhere in there, I can also choose it from this menu. I can make it so it's not necessarily synchronizing to my DAW's tempo, but it's kind of nice by default. It already does that. I'm going to put it on like a dotted eighth note. My tempo is this. So you can hear that rhythm is kind of working with that. And then I can also, of course, I have various things you can experiment with as far as changing the sound. A big thing to look at is the output. When it talks about dry or wet, it's talking about the original signal is the dry signal, the meaning no effect. Wet is talking about when you add the effect. So notice that if I make this 100% wet, I'm hearing that delay sound really loud, much louder than the original sound. If I make it much softer or the same, let's put it at the same, we won't even really realize it's a delay sound. It just sounds like I'm hitting the note twice, but really it's the effect is doing that. So maybe I like this delay. So I've got that. And then I might want to go in and say, you know, I'd also like to do something with some modulation effects. Like maybe I want to put a really heavy flanger on that. Again, here it is without. Here it is with. And hopefully you can hear kind of this sound where you hear this wow, where it's going up and down. That's what a flanger and a phaser will do. Again, I've got a mix. This is a pretty simple plugin, but I also have a mix button. I do, by the way, have some presets if I want to change or try some of those. But I can also just make adjustments myself. And how much do I want to hear of the effect? And obviously how fast, how intense, so various stuff. And then finally, maybe I'm going to do something really crazy, also in modulation, a ring shifter. Oh, maybe not possible with that synthesizer. Now, the other thing too, one thing that's an obvious to some, is that I can EQ, and notice that EQ has its own special thing here because I can click on that, and this is the equalization where if I have my analyzer on, I can see the frequency range of a sound. And I've got all these different ways that I can boost or cut various frequencies and various types. Essentially, it's like a whole bunch of filters that I can filter out information. So for example, this one, as you can see, it's going to make a certain range, and I can go higher or lower. It's going to make a kind of gradual slope to boost the signal, the frequency range, or cut it. I can also, if I want to narrow that, I go to the edge and I can make that very narrow. Too narrow to really hear here. But I also have other types as well. So I want to cut out the low end maybe for some reason. Very tinny, and maybe I want to boost that high end. So what's interesting is that the EQ is going to be, if I click on that EQ button, it will assign it into my signal flow based on when I added it. If that was the first thing I did, it would have been the top of my list. As you can see, the first thing that I'm hearing is the Alchemy instrument, then that's going to be going through the tape delay, then through the flanger, then through the ring shifter, then through the channel EQ. And the interesting thing is I can drag to reorder these. I just kind of move them around here. So now it's doing channel EQ first. Here it is last. Not very different, but sometimes you'll move these around and it'll really make a difference. In other words, maybe I want my tape delay to be the final sound that is then delayed instead of an earlier stage of the sound. Maybe same thing with the flanger. There was some difference in the sound there. And then maybe I put this somewhere, the ring shifter somewhere else. Maybe I want it last. So you'll notice that sometimes you'll hear very small differences by the order, but other times you'll see big ones. Now if I bring up my mixer, by the way, there we go, click the mixer button or hit the X key. You, of course, are seeing a duplication of the channel strip from the inspector also in my mixer. But if I had multiple instruments, I'm going to add like 4 more. So if I had a bunch of stuff, you can also, if you really like an effect, you can move it to another channel strip just by dragging, and you can also do the option drag technique where I hold down option and I'm copying the exact same one. So I could do that, if I wanted to drag these things, if it bothers you that there's spaces there, you can all obviously just drag stuff around, change the order, various stuff you can do. The one thing that gets people a lot, just pointed out, is that if you want to add a new effect, you may have noticed, but you have to go down to this kind of tiny little sliver at the bottom of your effects. So again, if I'm working in my channel strip, I have all my effects, and sure, I've got some slots here, but that's going to put them earlier in the signal flow chain. So if I want it to be next, I have to go down to this kind of blank little small slot, click on there to choose my effect. Okay, so that's how you can add effects on. Again, if it's third party, you just go down to the AU instruments, but same type of thing that'll work with those as well. Have fun.